Mm.
So it is my great pleasure to bring Kerry Davis who's joining us this evening from the Charity to speak with us about the world of sleep. Kerry is a mum of two school-aged kids herself and knows exactly how vital a good night's sleep really is. She was offered a sleep practitioner course through her employer back in 2011, and with her 2-year-old sleep issues, it was a lifeline. Through that expert training, she solved her daughter's sleep problems and it changed everything. And she wanted to spread that sleep fixing magic around for other parents and carers and adults with sleep disorders. So she's now a member of the British Sleep Society, the professional organisation for medical, scientific, and healthcare workers dealing with sleep disorders. And she's also completed 2 sleep school certificates for the British Medical Journal and training in cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia in adults. Before that, she trained as a learning disability nurse and taught in a school for teenagers at risk of exclusion, and many other roles within mental health, hospital settings, schools, and with families of children with SEN, has given her a wealth of knowledge and experience that means she can help almost any family and make complex sleep science accessible. It is my great pleasure to invite you, Kerry, to Midweek Matters this evening.
Right.
Welcome.
That makes me sound very, yeah.
Experienced.
I am very experienced.
Yes.
I'm going to take that one. But yeah, how it's
You own it.
I'll take. I am very experienced. I've been doing this for 13 years, so a long time. And for me, it is really important that this stuff is simple and easy to implement, right? So the presentation is here. I'm going to present the presentation, but actually what's most important is that you're taking away from this things that you can implement that are easy, that are going to change your sleep or make your sleep better, because that's the most important. That's why we're all here, right? Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Let's start from the beginning. Okay. And that's full screen now, yeah? Just double checking. Okay,
Yep.
so welcome to Looking After Our Sleep. And my name's Kerry Davis. I'm here to present on behalf of the Sleep Charity. So who are the Sleep Charity? What do we do? So we were established back in 2012, and we were established by a lady called Vicky, who was actually a very tired mum herself at the time. Now, initially when the charity launched, and I was quite involved actually in the initial launch of the charity, it was only for children, but very quickly we realised that actually it's not just children that struggle with sleep, it's everybody, no matter what age you are. So quickly it developed into becoming the Sleep Charity. We are a multi-award winning charity, and it's a really huge accolade for a charity of such a small size that we were given the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service. And we no longer have our Queen, so it was a couple of years ago now. But we're doing good work. We're spreading good work around sleep, across the nation. We provide an evidence-based approach. So everything that we talk about has been researched. We know that it works. And me personally, I work as a sleep practitioner, a sleep coach, and a CBTI therapist every single day. So I'm working directly with people. So the things that I talk about are things that I see working in practice every single day. I don't just present webinars. And our mission is a really simple one: to empower everybody to sleep better. Very, very easy to get everybody sleeping better, but that's what we're hoping to achieve. So we support families using our behavioural approach to sleep, and this is based on postcode. So there's certain counties that have a provision for sleep, but also what we do is we provide this sleep information via training workshops, seminars, things like tonight. So we're spreading the positive word around sleep. We are involved in research as well. So we often will find families, we'll often be part of research projects across the country, looking at what helps and what doesn't help us to sleep better. And we tirelessly campaign to increase the awareness around why sleep is so important to all of us. And we also provide healthy sleep information. I'll give you links to the website at the end of this. And we also have a national sleep helpline. So I'll give you the phone number for that. And that's where you can access one-to-one support with a sleep practitioner. So If you feel by the end of this, you might have some tips, but actually want to go into a little bit more detail, you can use the helpline, which is open and free of charge. It's funded by the Furniture Village. So it's a really useful resource. So without further ado, why is sleep important? So sleep is to our physical bodies as vital as food and water. So calories and water. So this isn't good, nutritious food. This is calories. So sleep sits up there as top tier for helping us to be the best that we can be. We absolutely need it. Now, most of us are going to spend about a third of our lives asleep, some a little bit more, some a little bit less. The 8-hour rule is a myth, and we will talk about that. But we spend a significant amount of time asleep. So it must be important, right? Otherwise, we would have stopped doing it. When we don't have enough sleep, this has a really big impact on our physical well-being, our physical health, our mental health, and our emotional well-being as well. So how we feel, sleep really impacts on every area that makes us human. Now, nobody really knows why we sleep, which is interesting, right? When there's such things as sleep practitioners about. So we don't really know why it happens, but what we do know is absolutely non-negotiable. So everybody on this call will have definitely slept at some point within the last 3 days, because the body will force you to do it. You cannot keep going without sleep. Your body will make you sleep at some point. It's needed to recoup and to restore our physical and mental functioning. We have to have it. And this quote kind of sums it up. And it was actually, this was quoted back in 1971. And to me, the 70s feel like they're only about 30 years ago, but they weren't. They were 50 years ago. So this was quoted 50 years ago. If sleep does not serve an absolutely vital function, it's the biggest mistake that the evolutionary process has ever made. Because in the world that we live in now, everything is do, right? So all of you guys are going to be aware of that. There's always more things to do. There's always something that you've got to do, or something that's expected of you. And if we didn't need to sleep, evolution would have definitely got rid of it the same way as it got rid of the big back teeth that we had when we had to hunt, you know, our own meat. So we know that it's definitely needed. And we know what happens if we don't sleep. So I just want you to have a think about this. And if, are you going to share the slides after, Miriam? Yeah, because the Epworth Sleepiness Scale, okay, this is a scale that is used a lot in sleep treatment. So this is used in the cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. It's something that's checked in on every single week when working with kind of sleep clients. And the reason for this is, what we want to look at is how sleepy people are during the day, because that can be quite indicative of how much sleep you've had. And when sleep is interfering with your daytime functionings, that's when we know that you need more support with your sleep at nighttime. So thinking about this scale, and you don't need to share your scores or anything, but if you can keep kind of a mental log in your head. So you'd score each question on a scale of 0 to 3. So 0 would be that there's no chance you're going to doze during the day doing this activity. 1, a slight chance. 2, a moderate chance. And 3, a high chance. So if you were to be sitting and reading, how likely would you be to doze? Where would you score yourself, 0 to 3? If you were watching television, again, how likely would you be to fall asleep or doze when you were watching TV? If you were sitting in a public place, so cinema, I mean, for me, cinema's like 3, like the cinema sends me to sleep, but you know, for most people it doesn't. Cinema, if you're in a theatre, if you're in a meeting, if you're in McDonald's, how likely would you be to doze? If you were to be riding as a passenger in a car for an hour without a break, you know, again, for me, it's like the baby rocking motion. It makes me feel quite drowsy. If you were to lay down in the afternoon to rest, sitting and talking to somebody, so mid-conversation, hopefully people aren't doing that often. And it's going to be dependent on who you're talking to as well, right? Because sometimes Sometimes you might feel like you want to go to sleep. If you were sitting quietly after lunch without having any alcohol, and if you were sitting in a car, and this is if you were driving a car and you stopped for a few minutes in traffic, and that one's a little bit more serious because actually there's a lot of car accidents that are associated to sleep deprivation. So the Epworth Sleepiness Score, like I say, is really useful to score like on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, and particularly if you're changing anything after the talk today, to see whether that score starts to come down a little bit, because anything over 10 would be deemed as being overly sleepy. So that would indicate that there's potentially something going on with the quality of your sleep or the quantity of the sleep that you're getting, and it might be something you want to look into a little bit more. But like I say, after today, I'll give you lots and lots of tips that you can put into place. And if that score comes down, that's amazing, right? Because we know that it's making a difference and working. I lost my cursor then. So I'm going to whiz through the physiological functions behind how we sleep. But for me, this is what underpins this whole presentation, because if you read about sleep, if you watch things about sleep, it will give you lots of information on different things to try, but it doesn't tell you why to try them. And I think having an understanding at any level of how sleep works is really, really important to be able to make changes. So I'm going to talk first about the sleep drive. I might change the name as we go along, but I'll tell you, you know, just however it flows. But our sleep drive, okay, is basically what creates a balance between sleepfulness and wakefulness. Now, our sleep drive, or our sleep appetite, I like to call it, builds as we go through the day. So when we start the day, our hunger for sleep is really, really low, like the lowest it should be, or it should be really, really low, because we've been to sleep, right? Then as we go through the day, this starts to create a bigger appetite, starts to build that sleep drive. And as we go through the day, it builds and builds and builds until it hits its peak, right? When it hits its peak, that's what helps you to fall asleep. That's what helps you to stay asleep. And this is happening within all of our bodies every single day. And most people are blissfully unaware that this is happening. And lots of people, when they think about sleep, you think about what time should I go to bed? What time should I wake up? And how much sleep is that going to give me? I'm going to challenge you to think about it in the opposite way. So I'm going to challenge you to think about it. How long does it take me to feel ready to sleep? How many hours do I need to increase my sleep appetite? How long is that? Is it 14? Is it 15? Is it 16? Is it 17 hours? And really think about sleep in the opposite direction, because it can be super helpful when we do that. Okay, so we've got our sleep drive, or our hunger for sleep, and then we have our circadian rhythm, which might be something that you've heard of perhaps a little bit more, or the body clock, which is what lots and lots of sleep people talk about. So it's this internal clock that we've got within us. And this sets our sleep-wake cycles, but it doesn't do it on its own, right? We have to train our bodies so that our bodies know what it should be doing and when. Now, it can be really helpful to know where your body naturally sits when it comes to your sleep and wake times. So do you find that you're more of a night owl type person? So you naturally want to stay awake that little bit later and perhaps sleep in that little bit later in the morning? Or are you more of a lark, where actually going to bed at 9 o'clock suits you perfectly fine, and waking up at 4:35 in the morning feels great? And it doesn't matter which one you are, or if you're neither and maybe somewhere in between, But understanding where your body naturally wants to sit can be really, really helpful when thinking about this body clock and training this body clock. Because what's often spoken about is doing these routines and things before you go to bed, having a set bedtime, but you can't pluck that bedtime out of the sky. It has to be in line with where your body is already working right in this moment. So that's a really, really important point that I want you to take away from this. Think about where your body naturally wants to go and work with it. Don't work against it, because it makes sleep easier. Now, having routines is really important for the circadian rhythm, for the body clock, because when we feed it, it's like a computer system, I like to describe it as. So when we feed it with the same information every single day, what it then does is go, I know what I'm meant to be doing at this time, and it will start to remind you. So think about what time you eat breakfast in the morning. If you're somebody who eats breakfast at 7 o'clock on the dot every morning, or it might be 11 o'clock, and whenever, but you eat at a set time every day, your body will tell you it's time to eat. Your stomach will start to rumble, you'll start to feel a bit dizzy, and your body will tell you you need to eat now. And the only reason your body tells you that is because you've trained it to tell you that. So we do the same thing with sleep. So when we've got a routine with our eating patterns, and we know where we naturally sit in terms of where we want to sleep, our body will start to automate that and will start to remind you, which is pretty cool, right? I think it's pretty cool, when you can get your body to that place. So having a set wake up time, having a set bedtime, really important, but go with where you are right now, not a number that you think is going to be the right thing to do. Okay, because there is no right and wrong when it comes to sleep. It's about you and your body and what works for you. And I would say out of the two, the wake up time is more important than the bedtime. And I will explain why as we go through. In fact, I'll explain why in a minute. So we then have this circadian rhythm signals to a part of our brain called the pineal gland to start producing melatonin. Now, melatonin is our sleep signaling hormone that tells our body it's time to go to sleep. One really, really easy peasy thing you can do to support being able to fall asleep is darkening your environment about an hour before the time in which you would naturally fall asleep. This really pushes this signal into the brain to tell the brain to start producing melatonin. And it's really easy to do. So just switch from brighter lights to low lighting. That's going to tell the body what to do. So all of the time, we're starting to automate this process, making sleep easier. Now, in the morning, when you wake up, using bright light is so helpful. It's quite hard at the moment, right? Because it's really dark in the morning. So just putting on lots of lights. If you wanted to, there are lamps on the market, SAD lamps, SAD lamps, and they synthetically create natural daylight. But if we can get natural daylight into our eyes, as close to waking up as possible, it sends that message into the pineal gland to tell it to stop producing melatonin, get rid of that melatonin. Now, in this process, it also kickstarts the sleep drive or the sleep appetite. So it really helps to strengthen that process, which then helps us to build a better sleep appetite throughout the day, making falling into sleep easier. Does that all make sense? Good. Okay, I've talked through this already and this. Okay, I always do that. I always talk about things, and then it goes to the slide and think I've already said that. Okay, so the sleep stages. So how do we sleep? And when I did my first initial sleep training down in Southampton 13 years ago, for me, this was like, ping, why didn't I know this information? Like, why did I not know it? So hopefully it'll be the same for you. This graph on here is a hypnogram, and the hypnogram is a study of sleep based on thousands of individuals, and it's kind of a rough estimate of what happens during our sleep. So what happens. So when we're in bed ready to go to sleep, so this is eyes closed, feeling tired, you know you're starting to drift into sleep. We go down into our stage 1 sleep. Now, stage 1 sleep is really, really light. You can be so easily woken during this stage. And also during this stage of sleep, you might experience kind of jolts. So you might wake up and think you're maybe falling off the bed, or, you know, those kind of things are really common to happen in stage 1. It's because we come back up into a wakefulness period. So it's not smooth sailing when you're first getting into sleep. Then we go back in stage 1 and down into stage 2. So this is still quite light sleep. So you can still be fairly easily woken, but the body at this point is now starting to prepare for sleep. So your core body temperature will reduce, your blood pressure will reduce. Sorry, just need to drink. It's all the talking, I've been talking all day. Your core body temperature will reduce, your blood pressure will reduce, and your breathing will start to reduce as well. So there'll be longer breaths. Then we go into our stage 3 sleep. Okay, so stage 3 sleep is really exciting sleep. This is our deep sleep cycle. And I get lots of people that say to me, I sleep so deeply, or I'm such a light sleeper. But actually, the facts are we're all a bit of both. So we all have this deep sleep cycle. Now, the majority of the deep sleep occurs in the first half of our sleep. So the first 3.5 to 4 hours of sleep. And during this time, it's really hard to be woken up. If somebody tries to wake you up, you're less likely to be woken up. Although we do have some peaks into our REM sleep and some tiny bits of wakefulness, but you're less likely to wake up in this stage. If you are woken up, you will feel really disorientated. You won't know what's going on. It can be, you can feel quite shocking if you woken up in this stage, but it is the most restorative sleep of all. And primarily this first part of sleep is much more to do with the physical repair of the body. So your physical body is really looked after in the deep sleep cycle. You start to do some kind of memory consolidation, but the first part is going to keep you alive, basically keep you going. So because we needed that right back in the caveman times, we needed to protect that bit first of all, and then as we go on it becomes less important, but actually more important. As I talk through it, you'll understand why. So as we come out of deep sleep, we then go into our REM sleep, our rapid eye movement or dream sleep. Now, as you can see from this hypnogram, there's loads of spikes of wakefulness in this last part of sleep. So every single human being on the planet will wake several times throughout their night sleep, several times. Mostly, we have got no idea that it has happened. If we do have an idea it's happened, as long as you can fall back to sleep within about 15 minutes, it's absolutely nothing to be concerned about at all. And I do have people come to me like really panicked that they remember waking up 2 or 3 times. And actually, when we talk about it, they're only awake for 5 or 10 minutes, and that's really not a problem. It's not going to do you any harm at all. Now, the dream sleep is, I would say, more heavy on our emotions and our mental health, right? So this is where our emotions are being processed, memories are being consolidated. It helps us to be the best that we can be, this REM sleep. And in all the years of doing this, when people are having less sleep, it is always the REM sleep that's mostly affected, because what you typically see is shorter durations of sleep, or prolonged wake ups, and then, you know, shorter bits of sleep, which stands to reason. We'll talk about the symptoms of sleep deprivation, but why they occur, right? Because the body isn't able to process those emotions. So you wake up still feeling the same way, because your brain hasn't been able to process those emotions and put them into where they need to go. Now, another key thing about the hypnogram is when we do wake up in the middle of the night, what we often do is subconsciously we'll check our environment for anything that might have changed. So really think about what your sleep environment looks like, feels like, and sounds like when you first go to sleep? And is anything changing throughout the night? Because there could be what holds the key if you are waking up frequently during the night and for long periods of time. That often can hold the key as to why that's occurring. So really think about your environment. So we all experience all of the stages of sleep, and we sleep in these cycles that are about 90 minutes, about an hour and a half. And we have to experience all 4 of the stages in order to wake up feeling well rested and restored, which, you know, 99% of the people that I speak to, that's what they're looking for, right? Is to wake up feeling like they've had a good night's sleep. A good night's sleep is going to consist of 4 or 5 cycles, and a disturbed night is going to be far fewer than that. So what does sleep deprivation look like? Oh, what does it look like? What kind of effects is it having on our emotional and our mental health? So what are you likely to see? And these are the most common ones, right? So, and I'm sure every single person on this call is going to be able to relate to some of these. I absolutely can. So when you haven't slept well, you're more likely to have mood swings, right? And you can go from feeling really happy to really sad in 0.5 seconds. It just comes on you like a ton of bricks, and you think, where on earth has that come from? And it's purely and simply because you haven't slept well. Now, you can become quite irritable as well, which is definitely my go-to when I haven't had enough sleep. I'm really grumpy and really irritable and really reactive to things, and you can't help it. You may also, sleep causes depression. Okay, so sleep can cause us to be depressed, and this has been proven by, like, in research, and it can definitely exacerbate symptoms of anxiety. So if you are feeling anxious and if you haven't slept well, it's going to make that anxiety worse, and vice versa. And it also can make us feel stressed just overall. But key to this, it can make us react differently to stress as well, and be more reactive to perhaps small things that maybe if you'd had enough sleep wouldn't feel as big. So you can be quite reactive to stress. And 4 in 5 long-term poor sleepers are likely to suffer from low moods, 7 times more likely to feel helpless, and 5 times more likely to feel alone. And that's the story, sadly, that I do hear most days. Now, from a physical health perspective, if, you know, long term, and I want to, you know, really emphasize this is long term, you're at a higher risk of heart disease and stroke, Alzheimer's, obesity, and type 2 diabetes, because actually when we haven't had enough sleep, our body will crave foods that are really bad for us because they've got lots of energy in them. So stuff that's like high in sugar, complex carbohydrates, the body's like, give me that because it makes me feel better. So it can cause obesity and type 2 diabetes. And it also lowers our immune system. So you might find that you're ill more often, take a bit longer to get over kind of regular illnesses. And those who frequently get less than 6 hours a night are at an even higher risk of stroke and heart disease. And actually, a lot of the literature, a lot of the research is based on this 6-hour window. So anything under 6 hours, you seem to be at a much, much greater risk of developing these things. So the impact on work and the work environment, which this is crazy statistics. The UK economy loses 40 billion pounds a year. Like, I can't even get my head around what £1 billion is. So 40 of those billions we're losing every year due to sleep issues. Has an impact on productivity, our mental and physical well-being, as I've already said. And somebody who sleeps less than 6 hours a night is likely to take a lot more time off work than if you were to be sleeping a lot longer. What are the causes of poor sleep? So lack of routine, and I think I've spoken enough about routine. I don't need to go over that again, but if we haven't got a routine in place, it can really play about with the circadian rhythm. Now, stress, anxiety, and mental health can and often cause sleep issues. Stress is more often than not, when I see clients with like extreme insomnia, stress is often at the root of that, you know, having a real stressful situation. So it has a huge impact on sleep. partner disturbances, snoring particularly is a big one, and restlessness in sleep. I've got a tip for snoring. Not many people like it, not many people use it, but it's a really good tip and it works. If you do sleep with a snorer, record the snoring for 15 minutes and then listen to that recording when you're in peak state, so around noon, for about 2 weeks. Your brain recognizes that sound then as like not a threat almost, so it's less likely to disturb you through the night. So it's a tip. I shared it with so many people and everyone's like, I'm not doing it. I just can't listen to the snoring in the day as well. And I had a lady in Singapore who did do it. And she listened to it for about a month though. She was like, you know what? I don't mind it. I'm used to it now. I listen to it on my commute to work. And yeah, the snoring stopped disturbing us. So she was the first one. I've had a few since then. Our bedroom environment also can cause issues with our sleep, particularly if they're not consistent. So if you're falling asleep with a TV on, it's on a timer, it then goes off 90 minutes later, you wake up and there's no TV anymore, that can then cause you to wake up fully. If you haven't got blackout blinds, and I mean, at the moment it's okay, right? Because it's dark, but in the summer and you haven't got blackout blinds and the lights, you know, beaming through, we know that light really suppresses the sleep hormones. So that's going to cause you to wake up. So really thinking about the bedroom environment. Diet as well can have an impact. Caffeine, so avoiding caffeine 8 hours before going to sleep is the general kind of rule of thumb when it comes to sleep. We are all genetically different when it comes to caffeine, so some of us can manage it later, but generally 8 hours before sleep is recommended, and that gives it enough chance to be able to get out of your body so that it doesn't impact on your sleep. Because caffeine can impact on going to sleep, but it can also impact on the quality of sleep as well. So you might not be seeing it firsthand, you know, you might be getting off to sleep absolutely fine, but then wake up feeling exhausted. It's because caffeine's interfered with those sleep processes. Alcohol, trying to stick to 1 or 2 units earlier in the evening, if possible. Alcohol absolutely destroys the dream sleep, and that's where a hangover comes from. So if anyone's experienced a hangover before, you're definitely irritable, you've definitely got mood swings, and a hangover is sleep deprivation plus dehydration. That's what it is. Lack of exercise and movement as well. And I know this is something that we wanted to really talk about in this group as well. So when I'm talking about exercise, that does not mean for 1 second that you have to go out and run a marathon, right? That's not what I'm talking about. But having movement during the day frequently can be really, really helpful to add to that sleep pressure pot. So that's the whole point of movement and exercise for sleep. It's all about that sleep drive. It's all about building the sleep drive. So the more you can move, whatever limbs you can move, you know, physio, whatever you can do is going to add to that sleep pressure pot, which just really, really supports that better sleep. And if you are having things like physio, you know, that's perhaps, I don't know, 30 minutes a day, or you are doing some stretching, actually where you direct that can be helpful for sleep. So the research suggests that movement in the morning typically helps with being able to fall asleep, whereas movement in the afternoon into the early evening helps with being able to maintain sleep. So actually directing the timings of that can be helpful for sleep as well. And not doing too much in the definitely not within 2 hours before bed, but actually recommended 3 hours before going to sleep. Excessive screen time, and this causes a big divide in the sleep world. So I'm gonna talk about it from an overall, but I'll actually talk about anecdotally what I see as well. So it's not, you know, just a one size fits all. So we know that screen time can impact on sleep. How much we don't, the research is so much research for and against. Blue light, again, is one of these things that was picked up by the press and it was everywhere. You mustn't have any blue light, you know, 2 hours before going to sleep. I would argue that point, if I'm honest. What you consume, I think, holds a lot more weight than whether you're consuming or not. So if you were looking at social media, let's say for talking's sake, you're more likely to forget the time. you're more likely to spend a lot of time on it. And if it's on a smaller screen, you're going to have to focus your attention a lot more to be able to consume that information, right? So that isn't so great for sleep, right? Because it can be quite stimulating. However, if you were to watch a film that doesn't involve serial killers, that isn't really gory and gets your heart rate up, but a film that you've maybe watched before, that's less likely to have an impact on your sleep. Because I think sometimes this really puts people off, they'll talk to me and they'll be like, oh, are you going to take my screen away? And if your evenings, if you're quite bored, right, in the evening, what do you put in place of that? And actually watching a film might feel really relaxing to you. So I would say, and test it out as well. So try, watching a film, and then try maybe listening to an audiobook and see, actually, is your sleep any better on either of those nights, or is it about the same? If it's about the same, it's not a problem for you. So yeah, that's where I sit on the screen time thing. Now, inappropriate napping. So any napping that you do during the day, so we're going back to the sleep drive, so back to that sleep appetite, that sleep hunger. If you imagine you're building this hunger and then you take a nap, it's like having a snack just before dinner, right? So then you're not going to feel hungry for your dinner. So if you take a nap, you're reducing that sleep drive, you're reducing that sleep hunger, which can then have an impact on your nighttime sleep. And it can sometimes be very chicken and egg scenario here. So what can happen is you have a really rubbish night's sleep, and then you catch up by having a nap in the daytime, and then you have a rubbish night's sleep, and then you catch up. But remember, that circadian rhythm is taking in all that information as well. So if you're giving it naps, it's going to go, that's what I meant to do. I'm going to make them feel really tired because they've taught me that at 1 o'clock we have a 2-hour nap. So thinking about it from that perspective as well can be really helpful. So mental health and sleep. So has anyone ever heard the term that I woke up on the wrong side of bed? And I think it's quite a suitable term, actually. Not that you woke up on the wrong side, but you didn't have enough sleep to really replenish that mental health. So there is a link between mental and emotional health and sleep, and depression, like I say, can be caused by sleep deprivation. Anxiety can be exacerbated by sleep deprivation. Jury's still out and anxiety is still being researched, but there's definitely like a bi-directional relationship. So we know that they're not good for each other. They're not good mates, anxiety and sleep. And bipolar also can be exacerbated by sleep deprivation. So the direct correlation between the quantity and the quality, which is another point that I really want to pick up on. So again, when we think about sleep, we often think about how much sleep do I get, right? So do I get 7 hours? Do I get 8 hours? How much sleep overall do I get? But how often do we think about how qualitative is that sleep? So am I spending the whole time asleep, or am I awake for 2 hours in between? So really thinking about the quality of sleep alongside the quantity of sleep. And arguably, I would say the quality of the sleep is more important than how much you get. And this can definitely feed into mental health. So sleep can be a cause and a consequence of mental health problems, and poor sleep, including insomnia, can be a contributing factor to the initiation and the worsening of mental health problems. They go hand in hand. Again, looking at mood swings, irritability, stress, trauma, these can all trigger sleep disturbances, sleep difficulties, and some medications can also cause sleep issues. So, and I think that's a really valid point as well, to talk about whether or not medication is having an impact. Now, mental health can affect your sleep in lots of different ways. So 4 in 5 long-term poor sleepers will suffer from low mood. As I said, 7 times more likely to feel helpless, 5 times more likely to feel alone. Sleep and mental health are more common in complex issues, and there can be a multitude of factors. So what we do know is that when we improve sleep, this tends to have a direct positive correlation on mental health and emotional well-being. So anxiety can cause your thoughts to race. That can make it really, I mean, who hasn't had a night when they've felt anxious and their brain is going 10 to the dozen, and then it makes it really, really difficult to sleep. And another interesting fact as well is when you're coming up to sleep, or during your sleep and you wake up, your brain, lots of the elements have actually downgraded. And what this means is that the rationalization part of your brain doesn't work at full speed, which means if you think about anything that's particularly stressful, it can feel catastrophic on going to sleep or in the middle of the night. And then you wake up in the morning and think, why was I thinking it was that bad? Like, it was bad, but it wasn't that bad. But because areas of your brain kind of switch off and downgrade to be replenished and restored, this is what can cause this. Now, post-traumatic stress can cause nightmares and night terrors as well. And they can make you wake up, make you feel really anxious about going to sleep and fall into sleep. Mania can cause your thoughts to feel elated, for you to feel really energetic. So you might not actually feel tired or want to go to sleep, and you might have really racing thoughts as well. And bipolar can lead to this oversleeping, sleeping late in the day, having these different kind of sleep patterns that don't feed into the circadian rhythm, are giving the circadian rhythm mixed messages, which in turn can then cause long-term sleep issues. So the interaction of mental health conditions. So mental health disorders tend to make it harder to sleep well. So we know that it feeds in. And the CEO of the Mental Health Foundation was at one of the, we did a few manifesto launches in the Houses of Parliament, and the CEO said that sleep was actually the second leading cause for mental health issues. The only thing that was higher than sleep was addiction, and that was all addictions. So it's really high up there when we're looking at mental health conditions. And many mental health conditions don't come on their own, right? They have accompanying things. They're going to influence how well a person sleeps and their experience of sleep. And they can also influence well-being and what you're doing during the day and motivation. So if you've got anything with your mental health and then you're sleep deprived as well, we've got that overall kind of not looking after your well-being so much as you would do if you were sleeping well. It can also kind of increase your perception of pain. And if you're not sleeping well, the pain can feel more painful. Is that, I don't even know if that's a right way to say it, but how you perceive your pain to be. If you're not sleeping well, you're going to perceive that pain more. And if you're laying awake thinking about your pain, it feels more painful, right? If that's your focus. So all of these things really do feed into your overall well-being. So sleep issues can be super duper complex, and sometimes they need lots of people to be looking at it from different angles as well. So being aware of sleep disorders. So I don't know if you guys have heard of sleep apnea, which is a sleep disorder whereby you pause in your breathing throughout the night. Often the trigger signs of that are snoring with pauses in breath, increased thirst on waking, having a sore throat can be really common. Also restless legs, when your legs are very restless the whole way through the day and night, that can also have an impact on the quality of the sleep that you're getting. So if there is anything that you think is potentially more medical, seeking help from a medical professional plus a sleep therapist or sleep expert is the best way to do it. Looking at medical issues as well that impact on sleep, but it's important that that's kind of taken first, and then the sleep is part of that package, and anxiety and mental health issues also. So I'm going to talk through a couple of sleep myths, and then, I'm really sorry, I'm really running over here. So everyone needs 8 hours of sleep a night is a complete myth. we don't all need 8 hours of sleep a night. We need as much sleep as we need. A really, really good indicator into whether we're having enough sleep or not is to check in with how you're feeling mid-morning, 10:30 to 11. Do you feel like you've got enough energy? Do you feel quite alert? And that would suggest that the sleep that you've got the night before has been enough for you. If you're feeling really groggy and want to still go back to bed, that's when you're probably not having enough sleep. Napping in the day is bad. It's not bad if it's not done every day for a specific amount of time, because what we don't want to do is train that circadian rhythm to keep doing it. If you take a quick 10-minute cat nap, nana nap, I call them, at 12 noon, that's not going to have a huge impact on your sleep. If you're sleeping for 3 hours, 3 till 6, that's likely to have a really big impact on your sleep. So it's just when you're sleeping, when you're napping, and for how long. You can catch up on lost sleep. You can't catch up on that lost sleep. So you occur some sleep debt, but you don't pay it back, which is quite good. So it's not like a bank overdraft that you definitely have to pay back with sleep, which is great. You don't have to pay back the same amount of hours that you've lost. And that's where a lot of people can get into this vicious cycle with sleep, where they think, I lost 3 hours last night, so I'm going to go to bed early. And I still catch myself saying, I'm going to go to bed early tonight because I was, woke up a couple of hours earlier. You're not going to be able to fall asleep, the likeliness is, or if you go to bed early, you're probably going to wake up really early again in the morning, exacerbating the problems. So don't worry if you do lose sleep for a couple of nights. It's not going to have masses of consequences. Older people don't need as much sleep. So if anyone here is over 50, it's a myth that you don't need as much sleep. Your sleep architecture changes. So where on the hypnogram, when I showed you that deep sleep that takes up the first half of the night, as we age, that starts to decrease, right? So you get less deep sleep and you get more REM sleep, which stands to reason because as you get older, that is when physical health typically starts to decline, right? So we're getting less of that restorative sleep then. Drinking alcohol helps you to sleep. Drinking alcohol absolutely helps you to fall asleep, right? So I'm not going to take it away from alcohol because it does do a job there, but it ruins your dream sleep. So makes those sleep deprivation symptoms hideous. You feel irritable, you feel moody, you feel stressed. So yeah, having the booze before bed is not great. And eating cheese does not give you nightmare. And I love to follow the alcohol one with the cheese. So if you swap the bottle of wine or can of beer and instead have some cheese and crackers, you're good to go. So let's give you some quick tips. So first of all, after this presentation, think about what might be causing your sleep issues. Is it something as simple as you fall into sleep with the TV on? If you fall into sleep with the TV on, what could you use in place of that can stay on the whole night? So it might be actually what you're going to do is stick the radio on and leave it on all night, because then your environment stays exactly the same. Are you trying to go to bed too early? You're trying to go to sleep too early and your body's not ready. You're a night owl. You're not ready to go to bed at 10 o'clock, even though everyone tells you that's when you should go to sleep. Actually, 12 o'clock feels much better to you. That's fine. Go to bed at 12 o'clock. Having that movement during the day as well. Keeping regular hours for bedtime and wake up time. I'll stress again, when your body is ready to sleep. Having a wind down routine can be really helpful just in the hour before bed. Darkening your environment, key, essential, must do it. And then do something that you find relaxing. Not what Google says, not what the paper says, not what anyone else says. What do you find relaxing, and do that, right? So if that's watching a film, do that. If that's reading an audiobook, listen to an audiobook, do that. Think about the temperature of your bedroom, the lighting, the noise, and the bed. So is the bed comfortable? Is everything else staying exactly the same the whole way through the night? So it's all stability, stability, stability. Avoid screens the hour before bed. I've already shared my thoughts with that. I would say definitely avoid mobile phones the hour before bed. Really nifty little tip for you. If you're in the habit of continuously checking your phone, which I think 90%, probably 99% of the population are, there's a nifty hack. It's called Grayscale. It's within the accessibility features in all like phones, tablets, all of that stuff. And what it does is it visibly changes your screen to black and white. So if you are somebody who checks your phone, out of habit, it takes away the stimulation of your phone. It actually makes it really boring, so you don't want to scroll. I put mine on most nights because I'm in a habit of checking my phone all the time. But actually, when it's black and white, I think, oh, that can wait because it looks boring. So I'm not going to check it, and it's really easy to do. Daylight exposure on waking, super important. Dark environment at nighttime, again, super important. Separating work life from home life and not doing too much in the lead up before bed, not doing, not doing too much that's stimulating that lead up to bed. If you do wake up in the night and you're a clock watcher, right, and you're looking at the time and you count it, as we've all done before, wake up at 3 o'clock and then you're on countdown. I've only got 3 hours to go before I've got to wake up. Take the clocks out. Take that. Sometimes I give people that advice and that's it. Their sleep's sorted. So yeah, take the clocks out. Watch your alcohol intake and caffeine intake. And if you are feeling particularly worried about anything, if there's stuff that's really playing on your mind, that is definitely going to impact on your sleep. Try and release those worries. So get those worries out at least 2 hours before bedtime. So your brain has got some opportunity to be able to decompress, to go into that bedtime, relax, and be able to go to sleep. So the helpline, this is a number for the helpline, but I'm sure you'll get, the slides sent over to you. So this, you can contact sleep practitioners. I think the opening hours have changed, so I'm not entirely sure, but it's all on the website. The Sleepio or Sleep Station, which is an online cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia app that's free of charge, and depending on where you live will depend which app is available. The NHS have got lots of information around insomnia, obstructive sleep apnea, which I've very, very slightly touched on. And then there's always your GP as well. Although GPs have 30 minutes of, what's the word? They don't have to do it, optional sleep training throughout the whole of med school. So yeah, some GPs know more because they're more interested in it. And that's all. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to stop my share and then we've got 5 minutes for questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kerry. We had some great messages in the chat. I'm just gonna, we had Abby thinking she sleeps too much, but because of the amount of energy you need when having cerebral palsy, sleep is between 10 to 30 to 8 to 8:30, but can be even later.
Okay.
But I think, what would you say about that?
So the first place my brain goes with that is there something affecting the quality of the sleep? So is there any snoring that's occurring? The second thing is how much. So natural daylight should never be taken for granted, right? That natural daylight piece in the morning, so important, but natural daylight as frequently as possible throughout the day is really, really helpful in helping you feel more energized.
Okay. Is that helpful, Abby?
Yeah, I feel it's bad. I feel I feel like I'm again. I feel like we and I feel like I always feel that.
You feel like lazy. Yeah. You're not.
Again.
Do you sleep the whole way through?
No. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And do you feel tired during the day?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely go. Do you snore?
I do. I
Yeah.
do. No. I think. I think I do.
Okay, you think you don't? It might be. Do you know what? I thought I didn't as well, and then I put a snore app on my phone, and I'm a dreadful snorer. It
Oh,
might be worth checking.
I didn't think that work. Does that work?
Yeah, it detects the sounds. So yeah, I heard myself, and it was not very nice. But get lots of daylight, so as much light as you can. And if you can't get outside for light, I would highly recommend an SAD lamp, because they're so good and they synthetically create that daylight, and it might just help you to feel like you've got a bit more energy.
Uh,
Amazing. Just from a comical point of view, thank you, by the way, Kerry, for that. Dean, apparently at stage 1, he actually fell out of bed when
Yeah,
his muscle jumped. His
yeah,
muscle
it's
jumped. For
possible.
you.
It's happened a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess I've thought about it and I told my mum, and that's not normal. Everyone said it's not normal, but I'm thinking, is it perhaps because what I've tried to do, I've tried to sort of. I always say when I'm sleeping, get yourself sleep ready. So it's like you said, turn the lighting down, or make it not too much time on your mobile. Sometimes it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But try and get myself what I call sleep ready. But like sometimes I think it's that thing perhaps that want to sleep so much you're trying to sleep but your mind's still awake. So I'm wondering if that's what's triggering it, and I'm moving about, and I'm I think I don't know what causes it, but I'm guessing it's in between sleeping and still being awake.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's your body telling you there's still energy there, there's still,
Yeah, and spiking you back up into that wakefulness. But you know what I would try? Like, like putting a pillow. So having your pillow where you rest your head, but then putting a pillow so your arms on it, because you're going to be more likely to kind of recognize you're doing it before
yeah,
you
yeah.
actually fall out.
Right, good idea. Thank
Give
you.
that a go.
Yeah, thanks very much. Will do. Thank you.
We've had people in the group saying that they find meditation really, really helpful to help get them into a calmer mind space, which is fascinating. Ruth Ann, you wanted to ask a question?
Oh, I think you're muted. Yeah.
Let's see if I can find you.
It's top left for me. I'll see if I can unmute from here. No, I can't.
Ruth Ann, can you unmute yourself?
Oh, sorry.
That's it.
I can't find the grey screen that you were talking about.
What phone have you got? Have you got an iPhone?
iPhone.
Okay, I'll talk you through it really quickly if you want. So if you go to settings,
Yeah. One sec. Yeah.
go to accessibility.
Wait, one sec. Ooh. Yeah.
Down to accessibility shortcut, which is near the bottom.
Yeah.
Click on that
Yeah.
and then tick color filters.
Yeah. Oh, sugar.
Go back
Yeah.
to your home screen
Mm-hmm.
and then triple tap the right button.
Triple tap the right button. One sec.
Quite quick succession.
Um,
You got it?
no.
So you go, so you 3 and then it goes black and white. You have to do it quite quickly though. It can take a while to get the hang of doing it.
What do you mean, the volume button?
The one, the other side to the volume.
Okay, one sec. It's still not doing it. Oh, it's come off
Have a play about with it.
now. Okay. Oh,
I've
And
done it.
Ruth-Anne, when it's uploaded, you'll be able to follow Kerry through doing it again.
Yeah.
okay.
And Ruth-Anne, I've just managed to do it, and if I can do it, we can work it out together. So if you need
Yeah.
some help, we will.
It took me a while. I kept like taking screenshots and all sorts when I first put it on, but once you get the hang of it, it's easy.
And
Okay, thank
Kerry,
you.
how do you turn it off?
Just triple tap again.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kerry. I know that there's lots and lots and lots of chat, and I'm sure that we can pick some of these things up if we haven't done already. I'm just conscious of the time, and I don't want to keep people too long. But I'm just, has Miriam got your slides?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so what we will do is they are available if anybody wants them, and if Kerry's happy with that, I can share some of the information if anybody wants to check anything up, or then just email us and we can share those. And we will, if Kerry is happy, share some of those key tips that you so wonderfully shared all night, and we will put them up through our social media and on our Facebook. Our website, so that everybody can see those wonderful tips. I've certainly learned a great deal this evening, so thank you very much.